me first off script tell you how humbling it is in the most magnificent of ways to be celebrating Muslim American Month, Black History Month, and Holocaust Remembrance at the same day. So I think it is a statement of this great state, of this great nation. This presentation today, prepared by the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust following the events of October 7, and the rise of anti-Semitism, documented thereafter, focused on anti-Semitism, defining this form of hate, exploring how it manifested before and during the events of the Holocaust, and discussing how it continues to this day. What is anti-Semitism? Simply put, anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jewish people on the basis of their identity. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA or IRA, created a working definition of anti-Semitism in 2016. Quote, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward a Jewish or non-Jewish individual and or their property, towards the Jewish community, institutions, and religious facilities. I give this testimony today in memory of the 1.5 million Jewish children who were slaughtered by the Nazis during World War II.
While anti-Semitism continues to exist today, this hatred originated thousands of years ago. The term anti-Semitism refers to the hatred of Jewish people on the basis of both religious and perceived racial distinctions. Jewish people were condemned for refusing to accept Christian beliefs, particularly the belief of Christ as the Messiah. The Jewish people's refusal to accept Christianity led to widespread anti-Judaism. I give testimony in memory of the disabled that were killed during the Holocaust.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say it's my first time speaking before the Assembly as your Assemblywoman, and I couldn't be more humbled to stand before you on Holocaust Remembrance Day and be able to share some words with you. In modern Europe, Jewish communities that had had a separate existence for centuries were given opportunities to legally and culturally join European society in ways that they had not been allowed in the past. While the legal and social status of Jewish people differed from country to country, a pattern of Jewish assimilation into society followed a hateful backlash that can be seen across a variety of historical contexts. False racial science was common in modern Europe in a variety of contexts, and this was soon adopted into ideas of anti-Semitism. The term anti-Semitism was coined in the late 19th century Germany to create a scientific sounding term for the hatred of Jewish people, to justify hate on a racial basis, defining Jews by their racial distinction as a Semitic group. The idea of Jews as a separate inferior racial group spread throughout Europe and was ultimately harnessed by the Nazis. The term anti-Semitism is now widely accepted as representing the hatred of Jewish people, including on a racial, ethnic, and religious grounds. And my standing here before you today as a Dominican Jew whose family had to flee into Dominican lands, into Curacao, into the Caribbean to save themselves is a testament to the racial existence of Jews and our differences. I give this testimony in memory of my late mother-in-law, who I love dearly, who taught me much about my faith, Arlene Lyons. Thank you.
By 1933, when Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, anti-Semitism had existed in Europe for centuries. Although many German Jews had fought on the German side in World War I, and the economic devastation that followed the end of the war in Germany, the rising Nazi Party, Adolf Hitler, blamed the Jews for Germany's loss of World War I as well as the connected economic crisis that the country faced. Anti-Semitic ideas met historical circumstance, and Jews were used as scapegoats. Beginning in 1933, anti-Semitism, which was spreading through propaganda across all forms of culture, was soon codified into law. German Jews were stripped of their German citizenship and forbidden from marrying non-Jewish Germans. Jews were severely limited in their ability to practice careers in medicine, law, and civil service. The Jewish community, increasingly isolated, became vulnerable to the state sanctions. Violence, which began in
Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht. I couldn't get the Nach. On November 9th, 1938, Jewish individuals sought to leave Germany and Australia, and many were denied entry from the countries that might have provided a path to safety, including the United States. I give this testimony in memory of Blanca and Norbert Burrell, who were part of my community growing up, and who shared their stories of their existence in these camps. Their numbers were on their forearms, and when we asked, they shared information because they did not want my generation, our generation, to ever forget, never forget.
As the Nazi regime spread across Europe during World War II, millions more Jews came under Nazi control. The Nazi tactics escalated as Nazis attempted to answer the Jewish problem. The problem being the very existence of Jewish people in Europe and globally. In January of 1942, Nazi officials distributed plans to kill Jews by gas in killing centers. This became known as the final solution. Approximately 2.7 million Jews were murdered in 6 concentration camps, including the most well-known, Auschwitz. About 2 million Jews were killed during mass shootings in more than 1,500 cities, towns, and villages in occupied Eastern Europe. Between 800,000 to 1 million Jews were murdered in ghettos, labor camps, and concentration camps. In total, 6 million Jewish people, including 1.5 million Jewish children, were killed during the Holocaust. It is important to note that the Holocaust also targeted other populations: Jehovah's Witnesses, the Roma people, the LGBTQ community, and people with disabilities. I give this testimony in memory of the great yeshivas, the Talmudic study halls, and their students that were destroyed and killed by the Nazis.
Like other forms of hate and discrimination, anti-Semitism has been and continues to be present in the United States. Historically, continuing through the mid-20th century in the United States, Jewish people faced forms of legal discrimination in the U.S., including restrictions on the ability of Jews to immigrate to the United States, quotas on the admission of Jewish students to colleges and universities, and restrictions against Jewish people purchasing homes in specific areas or neighborhoods, a practice known as redlining. The impacts of these forms of discrimination are ongoing and generational. In one example, the New York Times found that some 7 decades after redlining laws were passed, financial and racial differences remain apparent in these areas, regardless of whether the laws remained active. I give this testimony in memory of the resistance fighters who risked their lives to save so many.
Anti-Semitic incidents have surged long before the October 7th attacks on Israel. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which tracks such incidents, reported in 2022 that anti-Semitic incidents that year had reached an all-time high since the recording began back in 1979. New Jersey ranked third in the nation for the most anti-Semitic incidents in 2022. In 2023, the ADL recorded anti-Semitic incidents in all 50 states, including 136 documented incidents here in the state of New Jersey.
Today we commemorate the deaths of 11 million people, 6 million of whom were Jewish. We remind ourselves that the unthinkable can indeed become reality. Let us never forget their memory.